Okay, so to describe the two basic components of the oppositional culture thesis, um, it was really hard trying to find the two basic components of the oppositional culture thesis, especially in the chapter. But I managed to, because I didn't even really understand it after I read the chapter, but I did some research on it, and it turns out that it's related to a way bigger, generalized topic of race and intelligence. And according to the theory, it's basically minority students underachieve intentionally in school. So like they purposely fail tests, standardized tests, state tests, whatnot, because they're afraid that they're going to be classified as acting white, which I didn't really think was even a thing, but until I read this. But basically, it's it's not good. Not the acting white thing, but like the whole kids intentionally trying to fail. Like that's pretty messed up, and it can actually mess up their futures. But so it actually turned out to it became popular in the 1970s, which really surprised me. And they basically used it to explain the educational gap, which kind of ties in to the second part of the question. To what extent do you find this explanation for the achievement gap persuasive? I think it's very persuasive. If that's the if that this is it's kind of a hard question to ask, and I couldn't really understand what it's asking. But as far as I know, it's asking if this relates to the achievement gap. But so basically, I think that it relates to that, and it's a big cause because you have people that are purposely trying to fail classes, and then you have people who are trying to pass classes. So yeah, there's going to be a big gap. There's going to be fails and F's and A's, and one of it's unfortunately going to be because one of them doesn't want to act like the other. But that's an entire another problem in itself. There's so many things wrong with that. But as an empirical finding, I honestly didn't know what that meant, and I just looked it up, and I think it means like a real world example. So here goes. But I saw this a lot in my high school. It was not it was not diverse. It was very heavily populated with white people and not a lot of different cultures, especially even the town itself. But it was just always the kids that I would always see in the counseling office, not to get counseling. It was more about their grades were people of different cultures and ethnicities, which made me, super sad because like we should all have the same opportunity. So why are like the few kids in the school that aren't white, why are they always struggling? They have the same teachers I do. They get the same curriculum I do. Oh wait, they're biased against teachers are biased against them, and I think it's a real thing. I've seen it happen. For the other example, I would say, I would say in college, there's not a lot of. I mean, Eastern says it's the most diverse school in Washington, but even still, I don't think it's that diverse. There needs to be either a big awakening or like we gotta step our game up because this is a real world situation that we can all see with our eyes. You can see the problem, but and then for the next question, define symbolic violence. So symbolic violence, I think, it's basically you're trying to hurt somebody or harm something or somebody in order as like a power move, to get further up on whatever ranking you think you are on. But and as a real life example, probably one of the most obvious ones, and it's definitely the beginning of Germany hating the Jews in like right after World War One because Hitler he made the Jews out to be the scapegoat. He said that they're taking our money. They're the reason that we got in the war. They're the reason we lost the war. And he's suddenly started turning everybody against this entire religion. And it worked. It worked. I mean, the Holocaust and World War II happened, so it clearly, had an effect, unfortunately. But it was just he was able to make an entire nation hate what was once part of them. He made the Jewish religion seem like it wasn't even a part of Germany, that it wasn't even, shouldn't even be affiliated with Germany. But so that's my example. You know, I think you can see it in the school system. I mean, I don't think there's anything as intense as Nazis in the school system. I hope there isn't. But I can just, it's. I guess probably back then in their educational system it was bad. They took Jewish people out of textbooks, and they acted like they never even exist, or they really made them out to be the scapegoat. And that's, you can see that in the chapter when I forget what it is, but I can't remember where it is, but it was in the chapter somewhere about it. But there's definitely a big gap in the educational system between cultures, unfortunately, because of this thing that we have built up in our heads that we need to be more like this, we can't be like that. People just need to, especially educational systems, as an education major, I feel like people should just, everybody learns different. I get that, but we should all have the same opportunity, experience the same things, learn the same things. You might take it differently as somebody else, but at least you're still learning about it versus just not trying to learn at all, which is kind of how a country goes backwards. So.